This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one. Need to get your fat ass in shape.
That's great. We sit here and talk about shame, and now we're shaming other people.
Right?
And doing the shit.
Well, but
do our bidding, or
he's our friend, so it's okay.
It's great. Love it.
He responds well to shame, so
good. All right. Well, that's good. So after this, then we'll just give him a call and we'll start the shaming process now because we got about 6 months to make it work.
Yeah.
So
I can make it work in about 6 hours.
Long-term shame. He's going to end up crying in a puddle in his fucking kitchen or something.
That's right. It won't be the first time.
That's awesome. Hey, so we're going to talk a little bit about motivation today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Kind of the psychology behind it. Yeah. So I read an interesting article. The author's name is Moreno Zugaro, I think is how you say it.
Spell that.
But so none of these thoughts are original to my mind. But I thought it was just a really good article because he actually kind of goes into, the psychology behind motivation and has some tips and tricks that people can use. And we talk about that a lot on the podcast, right? We've talked about the fact that, motivation will only get you so far. At some point, self-discipline has to take over. The importance of, setting realistic and small attainable goals so that you can buy some wins to keep that motivation going over time in order to get to whatever the bigger goal is. But anyways, I just thought it was an interesting article. And so I figured we could talk about it and break it down because it may resonate with some folks out there.
Yeah. And I was doing a little reading too on it. And this is always a constant topic that comes up, I don't know, every quarter, every 6 months or so around me personally, because it is a challenge. It's a challenge to stay motivated on either a project or multiple projects or just the daily events of your life. I mean, everybody gets caught in a rut. Everybody gets tired. Everybody wants to take a lazy day. So how do you, I think you're in constant competition with this thing called motivation. Discipline is a good replacement, and a lot of replacement's the wrong word. Discipline is a good alternative if you can get to that point, but getting to that point of having it be a discipline versus needing some kind of motivation, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, that's something that I'm constantly challenged with. So reading a little bit about it, you brought up that you wanted to talk about the psychology of it, but I don't think you can talk about the psychology of it without talking about the physiology of it, because there's a lot of actual science, not that psychology is not a science,
right,
but
I know what you mean.
There's like biology goes into this for sure. And we're going to talk a lot about dopamine and cortisol and stuff like that. And the little thing he's not even in there. So let me remedy that while you go with the next topic.
So, we can talk about, do you want to talk about those other pieces first before we get into the stuff that was specific to this article as far as like?
No, I think it's probably all going to tie together.
Yeah, well,
we're going to keep coming back. So go with your data.
Well, one thing you just said, though, that I think is important is even if you have the self-discipline or even if you've been able to make a shift to where something has become more habitual, it doesn't mean that there aren't times where it becomes routine. I mean, exercise is the perfect example, right? We all get into ruts. If you exercise on a regular basis, we all get into ruts where we kind of do the same thing. It's lather, rinse, repeat. It's kind of like the same exercises over and over.
Yeah.
And you've got to change it up. You've got to find different ways to challenge yourself, different ways to mix your routine up. Because if you don't, it does get boring, or it does just kind of become monotonous, right?
You end up phoning it in a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or you just kind of go through the motions, but you're not really working out to the level that you could potentially.
You know what? On one hand, though, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, if you're doing this for weeks on end, that's where you can kind of be caught in a rut. But if you take a couple of days where you're just like, man, I'm just going to chill and go for a walk. I'm going to put the weights aside for a little bit. I'm going to put the hit away for just a few days and just kind of, I just want to relax and maybe a recovery day for me. It's an active recovery. I go for a walk across the desert.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to do that for 3 weeks in a row, now I'm kind of caught up in the rut, and I probably need to reassess.
No, and that's valid. I mean, there are times where you need to take a break. I can remember in my 30s when I was doing CrossFit pretty hard. Like I would about once a quarter, I would intentionally take a week off.
Yeah.
And my body felt so much better.
You have to.
At the end of that week, you know, and I was kind of re-energized, reinvigorated, because I didn't have like the standard aches and pains that would follow me into every fucking workout every day that just made it harder sometimes. And so there are times where that's important. But to get back to this article, in particular, he was talking about ways to motivate yourself to do the things you dread or don't want to do, right? Because that's let's be honest, unless you have a lot of self-discipline where you can just kind of force yourself to do things, that can be hard to do. And at the end of the day, like you already know, if you've listened to our podcast and you understand goal planning, you already know what you need to do to get there.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that hard, but knowing and doing are two completely different things, right? And he had this one quote in his article that I thought was good by this guy named Derek Sivers. And he said, if more information was the answer, then we'd all be millionaires with perfect abs. Right. So like the information's out there.
You can know it, but what are you going to do with it?
Right. But you've got to take action. So the first thing that he talks about is shifting your focus in a way you've never done before. And what he's getting at with that is he goes, a lot of times we approach tasks in a way that's inherently demotivating because we focus on costs rather than benefits. And so an example of that is like, we just had tax season a couple months ago, right? And I got to do my taxes, and it's a big pain in the ass, right? And stuff like that. Well, what if you shifted your mindset away from, I got to do my taxes to, I'm going to do some work to get a big fat check back from the government, right?
Yeah.
It's just a mindset shift. What's going on?
There's a cat outside, and I'm trying to make sure that it's not Loki.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
It looked just like him when he cruised across right here.
Really?
It did, yeah. Dark gray. Could have been a tabby, but it looked dark gray. Anyways,
okay.
I'll keep my eye out.
Thank you. You know, or I got to go to the gym today. You know, what instead of just going, oh fuck, I got to go to the gym.
Yeah.
What if you shifted your mindset and was like, I'm going to go get shredded today. Like I'm going to go work towards getting shredded and getting my
think about things a little bit different.
So think about the benefits of what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve versus the costs associated with it. Simple mindset shift, but it could be motivating for some people.
It could.
So, what if mowing the lawn and cleaning the house was changed to living in my personal paradise? Like, this is what I'm going to do to live in my personal paradise, right? So just some simple things like that. The bottom line is he talks about try to put your focus and shift your focus to the benefits of what you're doing so that you still got to do the work, but you may be more motivated to make it happen.
Yeah, well, what's that all come back to? It's the same shit that we've been talking about. It's all about the stories you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's
the messaging.
It's the messaging and the stories that you tell yourself. And we talk a lot about being process-oriented versus result-oriented. And it's kind of effectively the same way that, or the same thing that you're talking about. You could say instead of dreading going to the gym, you could look forward to the six-pack abs. And I think visualization is huge when it comes to motivation. I tell people all the time, man, like just sit there and imagine, you let your imagination, your creativity run, and imagine yourself walking across the stage and getting that diploma, or standing up on stage and showing those ripped 12-pack abs and being all glossy like Ryan was, whatever it is, imagine, like, let that burn that imprint in your brain. And then every time you go and, sit down to do crunches, remember that. And know why you're doing some of this stuff.
Well, and in some respects too, this is a lot about what we talk about with growth mindset too, right? And instead of looking at something as an obstacle or a chore or something that you have to do, look at it as an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity for you to go get better, whether that's through exercise or getting a certification for something or whatever the case is. Look at things as opportunities and pursue opportunity, like seek out that opportunity. That can be a mindset shift as well.
I don't think we can go forward with the conversation without just throwing it on the table that human beings are wired from our reptilian brain to be lazy and comfortable. We are. It goes all the way back to our caveman roots, to conserving calories and not putting yourself in harm's way. And it's this fucking survival instinct. The eat, fuck, kill part of your brain says, hey man, stay in the cave and chill, right? Go kill what you need to eat. And then otherwise, smoke a Lucky, bro, because you don't know when you're going to get to eat again. So that stuff is hardwired into our DNA, into our evolution, right? And what we're talking about in motivation and discipline is how do you overcome that part of the reptilian brain and move forward to reach your goals that you really want to get?
Yeah, and that's a great segue because the next thing he talks about is how to hack the lazy part of your brain.
Boom.
Right? So,
see? It's like I read your notes or some shit.
Yeah, but before we get there, I just full transparency and honesty, just for the listeners, like, dudes, Roscoe and I were just talking in the pregame about how we fucking struggle with this stuff every day, like
all the time,
getting our ass off the couch to go to the gym, forcing ourselves to go work out when we don't want to. So like we get it, like it's not always easy, but you've got to find a way to motivate yourself to do those things. And you were talking about that 3 day forward, 3 day back kind of
look forward, look back. Yeah.
And so I want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah,
I think that's valid. I think that's a valid technique and tool to use because in the conversation we were having, you and I both basically, discovered that that's exactly what we're doing.
Do the same exact thing.
Ourselves. Yeah. So
you're sitting here today. Yeah. You're sitting here today and, maybe you got a busy day ahead of you and you've kind of mapped out your day or whatever. And you're looking to try to fit in some time to go PT. And you're like, you know what? I got a basketball game to go to. I got to finish up this paper and then I've got to cook dinner. And, you've got all these competing priorities in your life. And somewhere in there, you wanted to try to fit in exercise. And what is naturally going to be the one thing that you're going to allow to fall off your plate? It's going to be the exercise. You're like, oh, well, I'll work out tomorrow. I'm too busy today. I'll work out tomorrow. Okay, well, what happens when tomorrow comes and you got a full plate? And this is where I go in that moment on the day of, I'll say, well, what did I do yesterday? If I just phoned it in yesterday and kind of maybe I had a recovery day or I had a super duper busy day and I wasn't able to get to the gym or be active yesterday, I have to look back at what I've previously done. And then I have to look forward to what tomorrow brings and do I have an opportunity to go hard tomorrow? If tomorrow's schedule is a little more open, then yeah, maybe I will slack off a little bit today, or I'll just click the pedometer while I'm doing chores around the house or something like that. But you have to have that forward look and that backwards look so that you don't end up in a trap of going like 5 days in a row and not being able to fit in your best pair of shorts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at some point too, you just have to prioritize yourself to a certain extent and stop looking for the excuse that you're looking for.
That's the key word right there.
I'm not going to do it today. Because, dude, I bump into it all the time when I'm traveling for work because most hotel gyms suck. They do. Like the treadmill suck. Yeah. The weight selection's horrible. Like they suck. And every time I get in, especially if it's been a long day, and I'm a morning workout kind of cat. I hate working out in the afternoon because I'm smoked typically by then. But I get in and the last thing that I want to do most times is go to some shitty hotel gym and throw a workout together.
Yep.
But I do that too. I go, well, if I don't work out today, I'm not going to work out tomorrow because maybe we get in so late or I'm coming home from the end of the trip. And by the time I get home, it's dinner and then it's, sitting on the couch, time with mama, and then I'm going to bed. So I have to kind of go, am I really going to go 2 or 3 days without working out?
Yeah.
And then that's oftentimes motivation for me to get my fat ass out of the hotel room and down to the gym to make something happen. So
you brought up a good point there though, with the afternoon workouts and that goes back to competing priorities. If I defer my workout to the afternoon or sometime other than the time that I've dedicated to that time, and usually now lately I've been on a really early schedule. So it's about 1:30 in the afternoon when I get off of work. That's my gym time. And if I defer that until later, like I gave you the example of, well, I'm kind of sleepy right now. I got up super early. I go home and take a nap and then I can go for a run later. Dude, something is going to pop up. Something is going to happen that's going to make you choose now between doing that or doing that. You get home and the fucking washing machine is broke. Happened to me a while back. Yeah. The kid comes home and says, my air conditioner in my truck just broke. Happened to me the other day. So my point is there's one part of the day I think that you have a lot of control over, and that's what time you wake up in the morning. And if you look at your day, if you do this look forward, look back thing, and you look forward to the next day and you go, you know what, tomorrow's a super busy day. If I don't get up 30 minutes early and get my PT in right then I'm going to be screwed for the rest of the day because now I'm going to be juggling to try to find this time. Also, there's a lot of physiology that goes into working out in the afternoon versus working out in the mornings. Yeah. So it is a balancing act. And I say control what you can control. And if you can get up 30 minutes early and get your walk in, then fucking do it.
It is. And we've talked about procrastination in to some extent complacency. And I've learned for myself enough that if I go, okay, well, today's really busy and I'm tired and I don't feel like working out, so I'll just do it tomorrow because tomorrow looks like a better day. Inevitably, tomorrow turns into a shit show because maybe you're at work and somebody calls in sick and now you thought you were going to have that time at 1:30, but now you have to cover somebody's work or sim or meeting or whatever. Or I'm like, oh, dude, I'm getting into San Diego at like 12:30 tomorrow. That'll be awesome. I'll have tons of time, right? And then first leg, I get rerouted. And next thing I know, I'm in Dallas at 6:00 that night, right?
Yeah. And you're smoked.
And I'm smoked. And I'm not going to work out now. And now I just missed another day when I could have done it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So that's happened enough to me that in my mind, I play the game with Stan. Yeah. And I go, dude, no, we're going today. We got to go today because we really don't know if tomorrow's going to work out the way we think it's going to.
So there was another good thing that you hit on a little bit ago, and it was talking about the hotel gyms and how bad they suck. Dudes, don't let that deter you from doing something. Like, I have never been to a hotel gym that didn't at least have an open place where I could do burpees.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find something. If the treadmill sucks, then go jog outside. Go jog around the parking lot. Make 20 laps around the parking lot of the hotel.
Get on the elliptical, get on the bike, do something. Yeah, anything's better than nothing.
All they've got is 15-pound weights, then do 100 of them instead of 10 of them. I mean, you can get something out of it.
And we use an exercise as an example, but this is transferable to any other aspect
100%.
of your life, right?
The point is to stop making excuses and just do it.
Yeah, you just got to do it, man. Okay, so back to how to hack the lazy part of your brain. So he was in the article, he talks about what you were just talking about. You know, we're inherently lazy. Evolution's wired us to conserve energy. It's one of the reasons why we prefer instant rewards over future ones. We don't want to waste time and energy waiting. Psychologists refer to this as temporal discounting.
Big words,
whatever.
Yeah.
The result, though, is that us not doing things that would pay off nicely in the future, such as eating healthier, starting a side hustle, reading regularly, developing a self-inspection practice. So his recommendation is connect immediate rewards with the things you are struggling with. And so if you need to work out, give yourself a sweet snack afterwards. Like, give yourself an immediate reward. If that works for you. This might not work for everybody, but this might be something that would work for you, right?
I would say it depends on what your goals are for going to the gym in the first place. But
I'm not saying, if you're really overweight and you go to the gym and you walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes, don't reward yourself with a gallon of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah, like the EOS gym right up here in the fucking parking lot of the EOS gym is a Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
Like, dudes, come on. Like, you walk out of the gym after having a really killer workout and then you smell that. Oh, it smells delicious.
But like, one thing you can do is, and like, I've encouraged this with my kids, Daniel in particular, because he games a lot, right? But during school, when he's in college, it gets busy. And so I'm like, dude, if you know that you've got something coming up, work ahead and then give yourself a break. So work a schedule, be disciplined enough to build a schedule where you go, okay, I come home, I give myself 30 minutes to grab a snack, kind of decompress. I'm going to work on homework for the next 2 hours. And then I'm going to give myself a break for an hour or an hour and a half to watch TV or game or do something else, that kind of lets me recharge, kind of lets me disconnect from the task at hand a little bit. And a lot of times by doing that, you can give yourself fresh perspective coming back into it, right? Because you give yourself that opportunity to kind of let down and decompress a little bit.
Yeah. That's all prioritization too.
It is.
Yeah.
But he just recommends making a list of some small rewards you can give yourself and then connect them to the things that'll pay off in the long run. That's one way to hack that lazy part of your brain. Give yourself a reward afterwards. Like, if you've got a really big project, go when I finish it, I'm going to go see that movie I want to go see, or I'm going to go do that thing I want to go do.
Well, I think there's a lot of depth in the conversation about motivation in general, both from the psychological and the physiological, but there are two types of motivation. There's intrinsic and extrinsic, right? Intrinsic would be like you're doing something because it makes you feel good. You write poetry as a hobby because it makes you feel good. You play the piano.
It's a form of self-expression.
Yeah, you play the piano or play the guitar because it just makes you feel good. It helps you relax or whatever it is. You're not trying to get on a stage and make a ton of money out of it. That would be an extrinsic reward. Extrinsic reward could be like you're doing something because like going to college. You're going to college so that you can get the diploma that gets you the good job or get you, to whatever goal you may set. So that's more
proud of you right now.
extra.
Do you know how much
What?
pride I have for you right now? Like, look at you over there using big words and explaining them. I'm proud of you, boy.
Jeez, man. I actually wrote things down for a change. But when you're talking about those two different things, the hacks to overcome them or the hacks to tap into those, I think become just a little bit different, whether it's extrinsic or intrinsic. Like, for an intrinsic reward, like exercise makes me feel really good. It makes me happy. I'm getting a super, like a long list of other benefits from it. But one of the chief ones is it just makes me feel good, man. Like when you go work out first thing in the morning, it just sets you up for a good day, man. You're in a better mood. Who is it? One of the damn Stoics, Aristotle or one of those guys, said, if you're having a bad day, go for a walk. If you're still having a bad day, go for another walk. Like, the shit works, man. Yeah. Get out in the sunshine, get some air, get some air on your face, and let that happen. And what that in air quotes is the dopamine release in your brain. And that's really what we're chasing here. That is a motivator, or can be a motivator, is that release of dopamine. Yeah. And it comes in and there's a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's different, and it's different for different
ton of ways to get it. And the on the opposite side is cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And those two things are like in constant battle and shit. And there's a lot of neuroscience and shit that I don't even understand, and I'm not going to pretend to. But what I will say is there's a lot of ways that you can, a lot of things that you can implement in your daily routines that will help you get that. And that's the hacks that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, it kind of goes back to self-inspection, right? You got to figure out what those things are for you, and then figure out how to kind of plan those things into your day, so that when you need that refresh, or you need to kind of be able to pick up that motivation piece again, ways that you can make that happen for you.
Some people will call that your why. Some people will say, find your why, and that'll help you find your motivation. And one guy said, if your why is strong enough, the how will reveal itself. So, I mean, we were talking about the exercise piece in the pregame, and I said, well, I got a dead grandfather, a dead uncle, and a dead dad, and that's my why for why I exercise. And I think that's pretty freaking strong, man. Like that keeps me motivated, so that when I'm 60, I'm still kicking. Those three men didn't make it past 60. And so that's a big goal of mine in my life, is to be the first man in my lineage to make it past 60, which, I mean, sounds like a super easy goal, but when you look at the past, it may not be attainable. Yeah. So I'm having to do things now that are going to get me there, 12 years from now, when I hit 60.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, man. So anyways, do you remember that one movie that came out when it was that Stephen King book where the dude's the author, and he crashes his car, and that lady takes him.
Misery.
Yeah. So remember
Kathy
Misery,
Bates.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's an author, but he's also a recovered smoker, right? He doesn't smoke anymore.
Yeah.
But he has that cigarette in like the little glass,
the little case. Yeah.
And that's his reward when he finishes a book. He gets to smoke one cigarette.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying go smoke cigarettes, but that's the kind of thing that we're getting at, right? Like whatever that reward is for you.
Have something out there that you're chasing.
Have something that's giving you focus and driving you towards, I get to have that one thing that I really want or desire to do if I get through this, right? That's one way that you can set it up and kind of trick that lazy part of your brain.
So what's he really trying to do, though? He's trying to he's trying to be a non-smoker. Right. And he's using this other thing as motivation to be a non-smoker.
Yep.
And he's allowing himself a little gratification on the back end.
Yep.
But in the end, he wants to call himself a non-smoker. And the last round of the program that Katie and I did, I said on the 76th day, I'm going to Cold Stone and I'm getting the chocolate peanut butter everything, right? But what you don't realize, though, is through the process of doing that program, through the process of him writing that novel and being a non-smoker, he's associated now his identity with being a non-smoker. Yeah. I had associated my identity with being someone who doesn't eat a lot of sugar and doesn't eat sweets, so that when it gets to that 76th day, or when you turn in the manuscript for that novel, you don't even want it.
Yeah, you don't even want it.
You've replaced the fucking habit, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Okay. Anything else on that, brother?
Well, I had a bunch of hacks written down as well. I don't know if you
over them.
Yeah.
That's all I got on my list.
These are hacks. These are hacks more to tap into that dopamine release. And one of them is record your accomplishments. Like write down the things that you've accomplished and keep an accomplishment journal.
Yeah.
And that way, when you're having a bad day or you're feeling unmotivated, you can go back to it and go, man, look at all the stuff that I've done.
Yeah.
You know, look at the journey that I've been on and let that motivate you a little bit.
That's really important, man, because I think for all of us, it's easy to forget maybe how far we've come sometimes and all the things that we've been able to accomplish over time. You know, and again, just because exercise is a great way to is kind of a simple way to illuminate some of this stuff. If you're on a diet and your body's changing, that's why, like when Ryan was here, that's why he has people take pictures every week of themselves, because when it's you looking in the mirror every day, you don't see the change necessarily that's happening and the change that your body's going through, because it's gradual. And so you kind of look at yourself and you're like, oh, yeah, it's changed a little bit. I don't think I've changed that much. But if you have that picture from day 1 to day 90 and you look at those two next to each other, you'll see the difference, right? And so
it's huge.
Those things are important, I think, to be able to keep a journal, you know, or on a whiteboard or whatever, and then be able to just, like you're saying, in those harder times, reflect back and just realize how far you've come.
You know, and I would say
acknowledge that, man.
I would say that on, I know this is going to sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth here a little bit, but this is one of the positive things I think about social media is if you're the type of person that throws those accomplishments out there to share with other people. And that was the next one, is share your experiences, share your work with other people, because that'll hopefully maybe inspire them. And when you see somebody else doing it and somebody else starting their journey, then that makes you feel good. And that gives you that little bit of dopamine release and helps motivate you to do just a little bit more to keep motivating them. Yeah. So it's the self-licking ice cream cone. But in the social media construct, when you put those things out there, one of the things that they do is every year or two, they'll throw it back as here's a memory. And it helps you remember. It's like, oh man, I remember going through that. I remember when I published that book, and I remember that feeling that I had. And that was super awesome, man. And I want to feel that again. So let me find another big project that I can work on for 6 to 9 months and get that same feeling of release that I had when I had that.
Yeah. Well, along those same lines too, I think it's important if you're going to take on a big project or, you know, make some kind of big change, like share that with some people that are close to you, because that's going to drive a little bit of accountability. You know, if you tell people that you're going, you know, right? If you tell somebody that, hey man, I'm setting out to do this, and you can even share with them, you know, and hold me accountable to it, because if I start to, and they can do check-ins, you know, they can go, hey man, how's that going? You know, where are you at on that? And you know, and then if you have to sit there and go, oh, well, I see, it's different.
So that's,
that can be some external accountability there.
That was some advice that I got a long time ago, decades ago, was if you want to run a marathon, the best thing you can do is sign up for a marathon and tell everybody that you signed up for it, because they will help hold you accountable. Yeah. And it'll come in the form of what you just said. It'll be like, hey man, how's your marathon training coming? Oh, fuck. Yeah. God dang it. I shouldn't have said anything, you know? Yeah. But yeah, that's the way it is. And that's exactly how we're going to shame this other person into doing the Spartan race this fall. So
Francis.
Yeah. So all of our listeners, help us shame this other person into, we're going to sign up for a 10K Spartan race. And anyways, it'll be a blast. So good segue into I'll just combine the next couple, and one of them is exercise. Obviously exercise is going to be a huge dopamine. We've all heard of the runner's high and all that, and it doesn't have to be running specifically. It's exercise. When you get your juices flowing and get your mind going, you're listening to some good music or a good podcast or whatever it is, man, that just helps you feel good. And that feel good hormone is called dopamine. And that's what we're really chasing here. And you really want to aim for somewhere around 150 minutes per week at a minimum. If you're like me, you grossly overindulge in that, but whatever your personal goals are, segue into the next one is set achievable goals. Yeah. You know, you get that feeling of winning, and that feeling of winning makes you want to win more. That's the dopamine release. That's what you're really after. And that is a motivator for you, because you like that feeling that you had when you won something. Yeah. Super simple.
Yeah, it is. Right on, brother. Anything else on that?
I have a whole list, but
we'll keep going.
Okay. Believe it or not, just listening to your favorite music can boost your dopamine levels by up to 10%. I mean, before I pulled in down here, I'd listened to a little bit of a podcast on the way to your house. And then right when I turned on Waddell down here, got 2 or 3 minutes left to get to your house. I put on one of my favorite songs. kind of helps get me jacked up, and gets me going.
Well, it gets you in the right mindset, right? So find things that put you in the right mindset to go after what you're going after. And sometimes it's music. It may be, for some people it's meditation, some people it's yoga, but whatever it is, find that thing that works for you that lets you kind of get yourself in the mindset to go get it, right?
Dude, if you go to YouTube and just type in motivation, you can't throw a rock on the internet and not hit something labeled motivation. And I guarantee you, man, if you are still sitting on the couch after 30 minutes of listening to David Goggins, then you got something grossly wrong with you. That dude will motivate anyone to do anything, man. And here's a hack for me personally. This was, I don't know, 3 years ago or so. I was really struggling with just get going. Once I got going, I was good, right? But it was I'm sitting here staring at my shoes across the room going, fuck, I really don't want to put those things on. And my hack was I would go to YouTube and put on CrossFit videos. I would watch like the CrossFit championships, and watch these dudes doing these grinder freaking workouts. And after about 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, cool, man. I mean, if this dude can do it, I can do it. So that would help me. And it's just it's a simple trick, fuck your brain into doing the thing that you want to get done.
Yeah, it's a motivator. And I think that too, and this will kind of get into what we talk to next after we get through the rest of the things that you have written down, but just acknowledge the fact that sometimes, and actually most of the time, in order to get where you want to go, you're going to have to do some shit you don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to get out of that comfort zone.
Yep.
The next couple of things I'll tie together, and it says prioritize you and be you. By prioritizing you, I mean, you want to try to eliminate as much stress out of your life as you can. Prioritize yourself. Do things that are non-stressful to you. Do things that bring you joy. Do yoga or meditation or read a book. Sit in a quiet room for a little bit and think. Journal. Do things that help you prioritize you and reduce cortisol and increase dopamine. That's going to help you with your motivation down the road. And the BU thing was chase happiness, man. Hobbies lead to happiness, and happiness leads to positivity in your life. It's really a simple equation.
Yeah.
Super simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. Oh, eating right. Eating and sleeping. Those are the last two.
Sleep's huge.
I mean, this and in the onset, we talked about it not just being psychology, it was physiology as well. And this is kind of part of it is eat a good balanced diet. Make sure you're getting the right stuff in it. And there are foods that can help you with your dopamine, and fruits, veggies, the occasional sweet stuff. Not overindulging in that, but the occasional sweet something. And then getting the right amount of sleep, like get into good REM deep sleep, and that'll help you feel better the next day.
Yeah. And that may be a process that you have to figure out for yourself too. I mean, one of the things with phones and tablets and all that stuff is, how many people sit there and watch videos before they go to bed at night? Yeah. And there's countless studies that show like doing that kind of stuff right before bed doesn't necessarily translate to really great sleep. Or an ability to fall asleep quickly, right?
Well, not only is it an overactive function of your brain, but it's also the blue light that comes in and makes your brain think that you're supposed to be awake right now.
Whereas, maybe reading for 20 or 30 minutes works for you. Yep. Maybe a 10-minute meditation works for some people. Find whatever that thing is that works for you that helps you transition into to sleep.
Yeah, and that was the big note on here was find a good pre-sleep routine.
Yeah, you need one.
And for me, here's a simple hack if you want to bring your phone into it is I set a reminder on my phone that my phone goes dark at 9:15 at night. And it gives me a warning at 9:14 goes, "Hey dude, I'm about to shut all this shit down on you." All right? 9:15 at night, everything goes dark, and now I got 30 or 45 minutes before bedtime where I just sit there and read a book, or I have a quick conversation with Katie, or whatever it is. It's the wind down period. I give myself 30 to 45 minutes of wind down period in there where I can turn all that shit off and then decompress my day so that when my head hits the pillow, dude, I'm asleep in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Most nights.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, dude.
All right. So the next thing he talks about is a simple mindset shift that you have to make. And I really like this section because it's just a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast. But here's the bottom line. Stop arguing with reality and accept reality for what it actually is right now.
Yeah.
Right? So stop arguing with it and just accept it. So if you want to lose weight, accept the reality that you're a fat body and you need to lose some weight. And instead of focusing on all the things that you're not going to be able to eat anymore, start thinking about the fact that your body's a machine. it's going to react to what you put into it. And when you put good stuff into it, eventually it's going to start to feel really good. Yeah. And if you keep pouring bad stuff into it, then you're going to stay addicted to that bad stuff.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a transition period, where it's not going to feel great because you're taking all the things that it's used to having away from it for a period of time. But if you get through that and you get to a place where you're actually eating healthily, and like, you're going to start to feel so much better. And then when the weight starts to drop off, it's like we've talked about before, go walk around with a 30-pound weight all day long.
Yeah.
And see how that feels.
Yeah.
When that weight starts, I mean, dude, it's so transformative.
It is.
But you have to accept things for what they are. And you've got to change your mindset around some of that stuff. Because it's true. Our bodies are machines. Garbage in, garbage out, man. You get what you put into it.
Well, go back to our episode 50, where we talked about good enough being good enough. If you're looking in the mirror and you go, it's good enough, it's probably not good enough.
Yeah.
You're probably telling yourself a story. And this all goes back to the messaging that you were sending yourself. And I wish that you'd have brought this up a little bit ago, because it dovetails nicely into the things that I was talking about, the physiology and the psychology behind this. And really what you're looking for is when you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, man, if you're able to be honest with yourself and identify those things that you want to improve on yourself, whether it's something physical, whether it's some kind of emotional baggage or something that you're carrying around. If you can get to where you're honest with yourself, then identify why that's important to you. And I bring it back to the why, because the why piece of it is what's going to help you with the motivation piece of it. If your why is strong enough, you'll figure out the motivation to get you going. And that will remind you every time you don't want to do something, you go back to the why. Why is this important to me? It's important to me to exercise so that I don't die when I'm 60 and leave my wife by herself.
Yeah.
Get your ass up and go for a walk.
Well, then it goes back to self-inspection. And I get that a lot of eating disorders are related to trauma that people have experienced in their life. And it's typically childhood trauma. So if that's you, then go get professional help. They can help you nug down the why behind it. And you can actually start to see that the reason that you do those things is a coping mechanism. It's not because you really want the chocolate chip cookies. It's how you've learned to cope with certain things, and they can give you other skills to help you cope with that are much healthier.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, like, stop wishing for the donuts and the cookies if you're trying to lose weight, and just accept the fact that you need to give your body what it needs to run healthy and to do the exercise that you want to do. I mean, there's a reason that when you are losing weight or trying to get shredded or whatever, that you have to eat so much protein in a day. And that's because that's what your body needs, right?
Yep.
It needs carbs for energy. It needs protein to build muscle. And that's just the reality. Yeah. Like, if you want to make those changes, that's how it actually works.
Well, here's two really good examples that are happening in my house right now. Katie and I are getting ready to go on a big trip overseas, and we want to be fit and trim. We want to look good in the pictures. When we take the selfies, we want to look sharp so that we can post them on Instagram and everybody can like that shit, right? We also don't want to have any ailments when we go over there. We don't want to be all beat up. And lately, for, I don't know, the last, 5 or 6 days or so, I've been walking around the desert. Instead of wearing my weighted vest, I've been wearing my 40-pound backpack, because I want my shoulders in shape, because I know I'm going to be wearing a backpack. I know I'm going to be standing a lot when I'm over there. And I don't want to have to constantly be sitting down and going, oh, my back fucking hurts. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm taking care of myself now so that I can feel good later. Delayed gratification for my trip. On the flip side, Caleb is using this summer. He said he wants to put on 10 pounds of muscle. So easy. Katie and I are on a juice cleanse right now, where we're just drinking juice and protein shakes and shit, trying to get lean and trim for our pictures, right? He is eating 4 times a day and packing on like four things of chicken onto his plate. So two very different things. But what it comes back to is we've identified why we're doing these things, and that helps us stay disciplined to the diets that we're running.
Yeah, I miss that metabolism. Oh, wait, the reality is that I'm 51 fucking years old, and my metabolism doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And it works in work too, right? So if on the job, whatever that job is, if you got a project that's going to take a long time and it's going to be a lot of nut work, well, sitting there and wishing that it wouldn't take so long isn't going to make it shorter. Right. The reality is it's going to take a while to do. And there's a bunch of shit that you've got to do to get it done. So guess what? Just fucking do it. That's the reality. Get it done.
Here's some redneck for you: shit in one hand and wanting the other one. See which fills up faster.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wanting stuff isn't going to do it. You got to actually put your shoes on and get out there.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on that?
No, keep going, dude.
And then the last thing that he talks about is reverse psychology, right? So, and that's not just like telling yourself, don't go to the gym, right? Your brain is smarter than that, right? You can't just go, oh, don't go to the gym today.
You can't lie to yourself.
But what you can do, and I thought this was really good, and we've actually talked about this before when we've talked about planning and like time management. But he talks about what you can do is get specific with your time and only allow yourself a certain amount of time to do things. So, for example, maybe you give yourself, when you get to work, or maybe on your day in the morning, maybe you get up early because you work out early. Well, maybe you give yourself the first 30 minutes to have your coffee and check email. And then the next 60 minutes is your workout, right? And then you got 45 minutes to kind of get cleaned up and get ready for work. And you break your day up into those chunks, right? And what that does is, in some ways, it gives you a time crunch around certain things. Or like maybe you want to clean the house. Well, give yourself 45 minutes to clean the house. And then get as much done as you can in that 45. It basically, what it does is it forces you to focus in, because you have that finite amount of time to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to do. And it kind of takes away peels the distractions away. It makes you focus on the task at hand, and you're not worried about the next 45 minutes after that. You're just focusing on how much can I get done in this amount of time. So
I got a good kind of sidebar on that one. And how many times when you're going through like an upgrade or something, you walk in, you got 60 minutes to brief this thing, right? And you get to the 59th minute and you still got 15 minutes worth of shit that you got to brief. And what does your IP do? Does he give you 15 extra minutes? Nope. You're done. Whatever didn't get briefed is going to be, we're going to call it standard.
It's debriefed.
And we're going to talk about it later, right? Well, what's the point though? The point is we're trying to train you to have economy of words, efficiency in your briefing, right? Time management skills.
You have an allotted amount of time to get it done.
And the way that you do that though is you set lines in the sand. Dude, I got 10 minutes for motherhood. At the end of 10 minutes, I'm going to give myself plus or minus 30 seconds at the end of this, and I'm fucking done briefing motherhood. And then I'm moving into TAC admin, and then I'm moving into phase 1, right? And you set these lines in the sand and you practice that shit and you get good at it. And that's what you're talking about when you set 45 minutes to do housework. At the 45th minute, put the vacuum down. You're done. Move on to the next thing.
That's right.
That's it. And if you didn't get everything done in that 45 minutes, then go back and think about it. When you're rewinding your day, think about it and go, man, how could I stood there for 5 minutes looking for something to watch on Netflix while I was doing chores. Fuck that. Put on some music and move on.
Yeah. The other thing he talks about by doing kind of the time constraint thing is, if you have an issue with committing to a certain extent, it reduces the commitment because you're not stuck with a task any longer than you plan for it, right? Yeah. So, and I've used that. I've taught my kids this same thing when it comes to like homework and stuff. If you've got a project that you're working on or something, allot a certain amount of time to it, and then focus on that and get as much as you can done.
What if I have like 6 projects that are due?
Yeah, well, that's how you can break it up too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, but first you have to prioritize. Right, you have to prioritize those 6.
1 through 6.
Yeah. Okay. You got to go 1 through 6, and then you have to have an idea of how much time you think each is going to take, and then you got to kind of allot time appropriately. But yeah, work on it for that, and then move on.
Move to the next one,
and move to the next thing. And if you finish early, then great. Guess what? You either just bought yourself time back to move ahead, or you just bought yourself a break.
Yeah. I think too that something that fits into this too is like, if you can look ahead on your calendar and say, I've had this conversation with the kids recently, is, well, I know Friday night I want to go on a date with a girlfriend, but I've got, 5 taskers that are due Saturday morning. Well, work on it Monday through Thursday, get those taskers done, and open up your calendar that night so that you can go out with your girlfriend on Friday night. If you don't prioritize and start on Monday and work for 4 days hard on it, then you're going to get to Friday, and now you're going to be faced with this coin flip of like, should I go out with the girlfriend, or
what's going to win?
What has the higher priority? Now you're in a conundrum when you could have solved this 5 days ago.
Yep, with just some good planning.
Yep.
And then, it comes down to what branding executives know, which is, in some ways, by doing this, it creates scarcity, which makes it valuable because you've got a finite amount of time to do certain things. And I mean, McLarens are expensive because they don't make a lot of them, and they don't make a lot of them on purpose.
What's a McLaren?
It's a sweet car.
Oh,
or a Ferrari. Let's use Ferrari
Is it
for
like
example,
a Jeep?
right? Yeah, like a Jeep.
Like a
It's
Jeep?
like a souped up Jeep.
Okay.
Right. But that's it. They don't make a lot of them, and they do that on purpose. And that's because they can drive the price up because scarcity makes it more valuable.
Well, the bottom line is
so
time is a resource,
it
right?
is.
And there's only, I mean, you can't make more time
And
in
your
your day.
time
There's
is valuable.
24 hours in the Gregorian calendar. I'm sorry. That's what you're stuck with, right? And you're going to eat for, or you're going to work for 8. You're going to sleep for 8. What are you going to do with the other 8? And that's really what we're talking about.
Yep.
Hopefully you're going to sleep for 8.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reverse psychology piece. So again, not just telling yourself don't do it, but building in that those time sequences that allow you to focus, get as much done as you can, reduces the commitment, and then creates scarcity, which increases the idea of value.
Well, we've talked all around it, but there's really, I think it really comes down to 3 things that are going to affect your motivation. That's going to be your physiology, your environment, and your past. An example of the physiology is, well, what if you got a cold? You know, you're not really motivated to do anything if you got a cold. And it's okay maybe to allow yourself a couple of down days to recover and get healthy. But, you know, if you're perfectly healthy and you're sitting there choosing to do the things that are not getting you to your goals, now I'll bring it all back to goal setting for a little bit. If you set attainable goals and those are the things that you think that you want to achieve in your life, then they should motivate you to work towards them. And if you chunk them down appropriately to get the small victories, those small victories are going to fuel the forward momentum that you want to get to the big thing. Like if you want to write a book, then set a small goal of today I'm going to make my outline for the book. Right. Yeah. That's a small goal. That's a small milestone that you make. And when you make that outline, you're like, damn, man, this feels good. Obviously it's going to change. It's going to need some edits. It's a good rough draft, but that's an accomplishment. Like that's a stake in the ground. And now you got a starting point that you can move forward. Write the first chapter, write the introduction to it. You know, write a 20,000 word outline or map of where you think this story is going to go. You know, there are little things that you can do that'll give you that dopamine hit and go, you know what? Holy crap, man. I just accomplished 2 things.
Well, and breaking things down from a time perspective too breaks things down into palatable chunks, right? So think about when you were a project officer for something in the Air Force, right? You've got this whole deployment that you've got, or TDY that you've got to plan, and there's a ton of steps that are involved in it. But what'd you always do? Probably the same thing I did. You broke it down into appropriate chunks and you focused on, all right, well, phase 1 is, you know, getting the squadron ready. And what does that entail? You know, the maintenance piece of it, the ops piece of it. What do we need to take? What do we need to build? You know, what do we need to focus on tactically, academics, things like that. And then phase 2 is like, no kidding, moving the jets from location A to B, and then bed down, and then the actual thing that you're going to go do, and then getting everybody home, right? You just break it down into chunks, and that helps you move through that process in a much more tangible way.
Well, on a smaller scale, like if you want to just bring this back to your daily life, you can do that with a 3-item to-do list. I was talking to a lady not too long ago that her little thing, she loves sticky notes. She'll get up in the mornings and she'll write her 3 things on her little colored sticky notes. And the feeling of putting that sticky note in the shredder at the end of the day is the dopamine hit that she's chasing. It gives her that feeling of accomplishment. And that's her technique on how to do that. I've used this technique. I grab a dry erase marker and write it on my mirror before I go to bed at night, so that when I wake up the next morning, the first thing I see in my face is my to-do list for the day. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I remember all those things I was thinking about last night. Guess what, guys? You'll forget about them over while you're sleeping. So write that shit down.
Yeah, the other thing about chunking things down into time too is, so I had to do some research around this for my weapons school paper, and this is probably a little more pertains a little more to the younger generation than maybe your and I's generation, but there's this huge difference between what they call attention span and attention range. So attention span is kind of like what you and I grew up with, where attention span is basically how long you can focus on a single task or thing for a specified period of time. Because of smartphones, tablets, computers, like I think we can all say that attention span probably isn't as long as it used to be, you know, like when you and I had to go to encyclopedias or to the library to do research for a paper versus just getting on the computer and typing into Google.
Everything's instant now.
But then there's attention range, and attention range is the ability to multitask amongst a bunch of different things at the same time for a specified period of time. Well, if you've got good attention range but not good attention span, setting specific time aside to focus, but maybe keeping that on the shorter end, 30 or 45 minutes at a time, may work effectively for you to get things done.
Yeah.
So that you actually focus on a task at hand versus being scattered in that attention range concept, where maybe you're getting multiple kind of things done at the same time, but nothing's really getting done completely or to a certain like aspect of finality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, that's a really good concept, man. We should probably go into a lot more depth on that, just that idea, because I think that that's a huge thing. And we all get caught up in this trap of instant gratification versus delayed gratification a lot of times. And I think that the computer age, the fact that I'm holding in my hand more power than went to the moon, it's holy shit, man. It's phenomenal. I mean, but that also comes at a cost, and that cost is distraction from the shit that I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everybody's been caught in this trap of you get caught up in a good YouTube video, or you get caught up in a good article, or you're sitting here dead scrolling on one of the socials when you should be doing the other thing that you told yourself.
Exactly.
Well, I got to go for my run, but first let me check my Facebook real quick. Yeah. And after 20 minutes, you're later still doing this shit, right? Then you're not going on your run. So right. I think that's a good concept, man. We'll have to bend that one for maybe a potential
whole weapons school paper.
A future episode, Cass Cooper. Yeah, dude, I wanted to talk just for a second because we haven't really gone. We got 10 minutes or so here. I wanted to go just for a minute on the two different sides of your brain, right? And some people will say empathy and apathy. Some people call it your bitch and your boss, or I call it Stan and Jack, right? And I named mine. I named my empathetic side versus my apathetic side, and the difference is I wrote this in my book, Work Hard, Don't Suck. There's a chapter in there called Empathy versus Apathy, right? And the empathetic side of your brain is the part of your brain that is concerned with your feelings and go, oh man, it's hot outside. You don't really want to go for that run. Wouldn't eating that pizza feel much better, man? Just it's air conditioned in here. Just sit on the couch, have a slice, and put on your favorite show, right? That's your empathetic voice versus your apathetic voice is the more objective side of your brain that says, side. Dude, it doesn't matter. You said you were going to go for a run. Get your ass up and go for a run. You said you were going to do the chore. You said you were going to do the task. Get up and do the task, right? It's objective. It doesn't matter about all that outside influence, right? And going back to the motivation piece where I was saying the physiology, the environment, and the past, those are the three things that can affect your motivation. You know, if it's 110 degrees outside, you're going to be less motivated to go outside and go jogging, right? Versus if it's 75 degrees, it's like, yeah, man, this is awesome. I'll stay outside for an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So, a hack, if you want to get back to that, a hack that I developed many years ago was I named those two sides of my voice. So now I have somebody that I can bitch at when I see it come up. And I named my bitch voice Stan. And anytime I hear that little voice in my head saying, hey man, it'll be okay. Stop. Fuck you, Stan. And that's when I start listening to my apathetic voice, my objective side of my brain. And that I named him Jack. Jack is the 6-pack abs with the hot girl and drives a cool car, right? Stan is the fat kid in the basement eating pizza, watching Netflix, right? And that's the way that I do it in my brain. And I have some nasty conversations with Stan because he's an asshole and he will creep in, man. He's slick. He'll creep in and he will talk you out of doing some shit every freaking time.
Yeah.
So you have to learn. I was really proud of this one gal that Katie's been. She's got this little group of women that they've been kind of challenging each other to do their walks and do their workouts and stuff. And this one lady texted Katie and says, "Hey, I named my bitch voice today." And both Katie and I were like, "Hallelujah!" Like, it was awesome, right? Epic, man. That's a big step. Now you've identified it. That's the best part of it is you've identified there's a voice in your head.
Yeah, we all have it.
That's trying to talk you out of doing the shit that you really need to get done. You know, and I forget what she called hers, Nelly or something like that. But Katie calls hers Betty bitch. I call mine Stan. You know, a lot of people have different ways that they talk to themselves and these different conversations you have in your head. But that is a hack that I came up with a little bit ago was name that motherfucker and start having conversations with him.
Yeah.
And if you're strong enough, when you get to be strong enough, you'll learn to tell him no. Just shut the fuck up, fat kid in the basement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
Sorry, dude.
That's all right. That's all good stuff, brother.
Good rant.
So, yeah, that's what we got today for motivation and making yourself do things that you dread or don't want to do. Like there's ways to get around it. Y'all figure out what works for you. We've given you a bunch of tips, tricks, techniques.
Well, what does it all come back to? Comes back to that big ass knot.
Yep.
That big old knot of identify, do some of that self-inspection shit, identify your stuff, set some goals out there.
Yep.
Right. And put together a plan.
Get a plan together.
Forward. That's it.
And move. Yep.
I liked what you were talking about earlier about the Projo thing. And I couldn't help thinking about one of the projects that I was working on, one of the TDYs I was working on once upon a time. I went to the old share drive and copied and pasted all the shit into the new folder, and started going through it, weeding out, just trying to find, kind of a starting point. And I came across a checklist. And that's what, the to-do list, the daily to-do list, even on a giant project like that, man, there's a checklist.
Yeah.
And you rack and stack it, you phase it out, you go step one, identify who are my key players in this. You know, who do I need to reach out to and start making contact with? And like the LRS, I need to start getting some ISU set aside.
On the maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. So use checklist to your advantage, man. Set these goals, come up with a plan, develop a path forward and start moving.
Yeah, that's it.
Good stuff, man.
Be the change.
Be the one. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number one, change and the number one.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.